you, Janish. City were absolutely cruising at 2-0. They could have had more. So how on earth did they not get all 3 points in this one?
Yeah, the easy thing would be to say they took it for granted that the game was won. It's true, probably. They're that good. I mean, they total control in the first half. And then you'd have to say that in the end, total panic, which is unusual, right? For a team that usually has 70, 80% possession, it would have been so easy at 2-0 to obviously see the game out. And of course, we saw the goal, a couple of mistakes in the back, which brings us to, why that happens. And as we've said, lots of control is one thing, but being bad defensively is another. This is 20 goals in the Premier League. What is it, 17 games? It's goal plus. Let's not forget that Manchester City at their best when they were winning and fighting Liverpool in those epic battles. I mean, they were conceding 6, 7, 8 goals a season. So this is something that's been going on throughout the season. Pep Guardiola does not know his best back four. I can sort of understand why, because nobody in that back 4, 5, or 6, if you add some of the other players, is playing well at the moment. Even in the Champions League in such an easy group, it probably hasn't got unnoticed. The 7 goals, not so much, but even the last game away to Červena Zvezda, Mark and Lewis, right? I mean, easy game, and it's still 3-2, 2 goals conceded. This is now 8 games in all competitions without a clean sheet, and it looked all so good. And I was going to mention in this conversation, the biggest thing, had they wanted, would have been the clean sheet. And here we are against struggling Palace, where they drop points. So warning signs are all over the place.
Luis Miguel, I'm glad Janish focused mainly on City's defending. And he also didn't mention Haaland. And I think that's correct, because City shouldn't need Haaland to beat Crystal Palace. They're 2-0 up. They didn't need Haaland to beat Crystal Palace. What has happened between a side that won practically everything last season to the team now? What's going on?
I think a few things, MD. I think part of it, as Janish was mentioning, was the defensive side of things. I think other teams, regardless of how good you are, whether you're in the Champions League or a mid-table team like Crystal Palace, you're figuring out how to, at the very least, exploit the moments that you have attention to, because that's exactly what Palace did today. I mean, City had 75% possession, 812 passes to Palace's 212, 19 shots, etc. So everything that Pep Guardiola likes in his little statistic tablet, right? But here's the thing. That's not really happening as much until this season, which is if Man City give you that sniff, you're going to take it. And obviously that was a horrible mistake by Phil Foden to allow that penalty at the end, because he just swung his leg like he was cutting some grass in that one. And the penalty was given, rightly so, and 2-2 it was. I'll tell you what, another thing. MD, I think they miss players like Ilkay Gundogan. I think losing him was key, because I think when things are not going your way and you don't have your talisman like Erling Haaland and even Kevin De Bruyne, this is the kind of game in another season where Gundogan was just taking it by the two horns and just taking care of business. I think those tiny little factors are all adding to the component that, yes, Man City are allowing you to play, but everybody else right now is trying to figure out what can we do whenever we get that opportunity, and that's what's happened.
How do you fix it, Janish?
Well, I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, and we're so afraid to say that, that this is a downfall of Manchester City, and I'm not insinuating that, but it hasn't been as good. I think defensively is first. Remember how it all started. It started with Ruben Dias. There were years where they were still good going forward. They were excellent under Pep Guardiola, yet defensively they had issue. They bought Ruben Dias, and things have changed, very much like Van Dijk at Liverpool. Ruben Dias has been struggling. Even today, I think on that first goal, even though Kyle Walker, I think, had Mateta initially, I think Ruben Dias got to react. He continues to play Nathan Ake centrally. I don't understand why. You saw on that goal that he allowed the player to get in front of him. He continues to tell me that Guardiola is a good left back, which I'm not 100% sure. I think the big thing is to fix this team defensively. I don't know if I'm pushing back against, that it's not about Erling Haaland. I think he is important, and he would have been important, because you guys have mentioned that teams see the moments in the game where they can take advantage of that, and that's fair play. That goes to my theory defensively. But in terms of going forward, I think that you prepare for City differently when Erling Haaland is on the pitch, right? Because he does tie up 2, sometimes 3 defenders. So yeah, it's easy to say it was 2-0, an easy game. They should have seen it without it. That's fair play. But I just think that once you have Haaland, once you have today there was no Doku, no Haaland, no De Bruyne. De Bruyne is going to make a difference. So I'll withhold my judgment, but it just doesn't feel right, does it? You could sense it throughout the season that even fluidity going forward, it's not the same. So it's more psychological. Maybe going away to Saudi Arabia will change that. A little bit of bonding and a little bit of, that ability when you're away for a week, when Pep Guardiola can get people in the room for longer than a few minutes, that could change. It's still a powerful force.
Are we guilty at times, Luis Miguel, of a little bit of kind of, with regards to Crystal Palace, being disrespectful to them? Oh, it's City against Crystal Palace. Palace went there a couple of times recently in the last few years. They had an Andros Townsend goal that gave them a 3-2 win. They had a Conor Gallagher and Wilfried Zaha 2 goals that gave them a 2-0 win as well. They've come back from 2 goals down today. And I always feel that when you get such a narrative, and of course City's the narrative, it's a huge story. They're the champions and they were 2-0 up and they didn't beat Palace. Sometimes what gets lost is a little bit of praise for the visitors, and Palace deserve that.
100%. I mean, you have to begin with the fact that they got a valuable point. And you mentioned that the results in recent years has come to the favor of Palace, specifically when they had the likes of Zaha, Conor Gallagher, etc. But they have talent. I mean, we're talking about Michael Olise, who's, for me, one of the best players in the Premier League, of course. And they held collectively strong, even though the stats showed the amount of possession that City had, all the passes. It doesn't matter in the end. In the end, what matters is that final scoreboard. And they just kept going. They kept plugging away. And I was very, very impressed. And Janusz mentioned something about, not being confident about Guardiola being on left back. 100%, even more so today. You don't really want that kind of a left back against a strong, fast, smart, dynamic attacking lineup of Crystal Palace, who are going to hold you. They're going to wait until you lose the ball, and then boom, they're going to pounce. And that's what happened. So it's kind of the argument that I had a few weeks ago, which is, yes, City are showing cracks, and yes, they're missing players, and De Bruyne is coming back, and Haaland will come back eventually, et cetera, et cetera. But other teams are getting stronger. And if they're not getting stronger, at least they're getting smarter. And if they're not getting smarter, at least they're getting smarter on the day off. And that's exactly what happened to Palace today.
Liverpool, Arsenal, Aston Villa, all ahead of Manchester City, all with a game in hand. What are they thinking, Janusz?
I think they're probably thinking, we've been there, we've done that, we've seen it before. Last season, it's one of them, right? I mean, there were games in hand. They had to go away as well. This is going to happen. That gap is probably going to grow, but to what level? Is it going to be enough? They're probably thinking of taking advantage as much as possible, not allowing Manchester City to do what they normally do, get organized in the second half of the season. Now you're going to have a couple months without the Champions League, of course, which helps recover some of the players that we've mentioned, because they are significant. Erling Haaland, Doku's been absolutely outstanding, and De Bruyne is going to come back and is going to make a massive difference. So I think these teams understand that it's silly to say every game is important, because of course they are, but I think you almost think to yourself, they're not right. Let's make sure that now is the time that we get maximum points, not later on hoping that somebody's going to do them a favor. So they sense it. But to be quite frank, I don't know if there's one team without a problem right now. We'll get to some of the other ones, because what we're seeing right now is unprecedented, at least for me. I didn't do any scientific research, but it seems to me that a lot of the big teams are missing key players. It seems to me there are more injuries and suspensions than maybe in seasons past. So, there isn't a team right now where you can point towards even Arsenal and Liverpool and say, wow, they're playing lights out. If they continue this, we're going to have a new champion.
Luis Miguel, would you, if you